Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video is going to be going through and ranking all NBA shooting guards from 30th to 1st. This is starting shooting guards, I should note. This is based on projected lineups, so if you think that there's a guy off the bench like Lou Williams, for instance, will not be in this because he is not going to be the starting shooting guard for the Clippers. He'll be coming off the bench. So just keep that in mind when I'm going through here. Of course, this is all my opinion, and feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, and own rankings below. I'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, at number 30 for the Detroit Pistons, I have Langston Galloway. This is a guy who just really shouldn't be starting. He's still a quality NBA player, still can be valuable to a team, just not starter quality. He should be playing 15 minutes a night and giving you some value in those 15 minutes, but not really more than that because he isn't good enough to warrant more time than that. And uh, just by extension of that, should not be a starter in the NBA. At number 29, I have Malik Monk, a young guy who, for the Hornets, is a decent player. Really, again, shouldn't be starting if he were on a good NBA team. He'd be coming off the bench. Just not necessarily a top quality guy. As far as like he's good again for a few spot minutes here and there, but he's really streaky. And a lot of times last year he was more bad than good as far as being streaky. Like he would miss a lot of shots, and his efficiency numbers were pretty bad. So I don't really know what the best case scenario is for him here. Maybe if he plays a ton of minutes this year, he'll kind of be able to work out some of his kinks in games and learn from his own mistakes. Let's hope for that and hope that he develops more. At 28, I have Norman Powell, who I think will be starting for the Raptors over Van Fleet. I think they want to bring Van Fleet continually off the bench like they have been doing. And without Danny Green, Norman Powell is basically next man up. Another guy who normally I think for a team should not be starting, should be coming off the bench, but because of the lack of shooting guard depth, he will be starting for the Raptors. He is pretty athletic and an average defender. Shooting is okay to slightly below average, and really just you'd prefer to have him be like a seventh man rather than a starter. At 27, I have Dillon Brooks for the Grizzlies. Again, a really young guy who needs to develop a lot more, and really you'd prefer to bring him off the bench. But if you're a team like the Grizzlies who lack talent, you're going to be starting him. He has some all right athleticism, not much on defense, so to speak, but he has some decent ball handling abilities and is a decent shooter. So he's in here at 27. At 26, I have Reggie Bullock for the Knicks. He is a guy who is a really good bench piece, but not really a guy that you want to have as a starter playing like 30 minutes a night. He is a good like corner 3-point shooter and can shoot in general pretty well, but he's just an average defender and can't really create shots for himself on offense. So that's why he's down here at 26. At 25, I have Darius Garland, who will be starting at shooting guard for the Cavaliers next to Collin Sexton. He will be undersized. I think he'll be like 6'3 or 6'4, and he's supposed to be the next big thing as far as point guards after Ja Morant. I don't really know much about him, but all I've heard is good stuff, so I'm ranking him here. Not at 30th because I've heard lots of good things, and not at like 10 because he is a rookie and he will struggle. So he's in here at 25. At 24, I have DeJounte Murray. He's been injured for a whole year, so him coming back, we don't really know what to expect. He's supposed to, when he did play last year, or the year before last, he was a good player as far as he was worthy of being a starter in the NBA. He will probably be like the Spurs' like fourth or fifth leading scorer. He can't shoot it all that well, but that's really one of the only negatives to his game. He can be a combo guard, but hasn't played much shooting guard either. And I think because he is taller than Derek White, that they will want to start him at shooting guard because he's like 6'5" compared to Derek White 6'3 to 6'4. So I think that they will want to have DeJounte like guarding the shooting guards and stuff like that. He is really wiry and long, so those physical attributes come in handy on the defensive end. On offense, he's athletic, but just needs to develop the jumper more. At 23, I have Courtney Lee for the Dallas Mavericks. I believe that they'll bring Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench, and that's why I have Courtney Lee in as a starter here. He's a good 3 and D player. He like defines that to a T. Not really athletic, but average to above average on defense in his older age, and an above average 3-point shooter, but can't create his own offense. But still a guy that's worthy of starting in the NBA for sure. At 22, I have Kevin Huerter for the Atlanta Hawks, a guy who was only a rookie last year, but did pretty well shooting the ball. Can't create much offense for himself yet, but he seems to have a lot of promise and a lot of potential. Pretty average to slightly below average on defense, but still shows a lot of room to grow and should be pretty exciting to watch with that Hawks team. Next, I have Wes Matthews, who will be starting for the, let's see here, oh, the Bucks. I was trying to remember where he had gone. Yeah, I think he'll fill in pretty nicely for Brogdon. I don't think he'll shoot the 50, 40, 90, but I think he will be able to shoot 45% and like 35% from three. And, they're going to look for him to be like the fourth leading, maybe even fifth leading scorer on this team. So I don't think a ton is necessarily expected from him, but I think he will fit in nicely. He is a professional with a good basketball IQ and not the most not the most athletic, not the best scorer or defender, but he can do everything well, and that's better than doing something great and being awful at something else. Okay, next I have Danny Green at 20 for the Lakers. A really great 3-and-D player, kind of like a better version of Courtney Lee. He's taller, he's longer, he can shoot better, he can defend more versatilely. And yeah, I honestly don't feel like I need to say much more than that. He's an NBA champ, and he was an integral part to that team during that championship run, both with the Spurs and the Raptors. Okay, at number 19, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Showed a lot of promise as a rookie for the Clippers. I think for Oklahoma City in this upcoming season, he'll start at shooting guard next to Chris Paul. Really athletic, not much of a shooter, but a above average defender, and just has a lot of promise and I think will break out this year. And maybe we could see averages of like 14 points per game, 7 to 8 assists per game, and 6 rebounds per game. I think that's pretty reasonable on this Oklahoma City team that will lack necessarily like a go-to guy. Chris Paul will be there, but he'll probably be averaging like 16 and 8. Won't really be the go-to guy. So I think Shai could step up and see an increase in his statistical production. At 18, I have Evan Fournier for the Magic. Kind of like a really okay. So defensively, he's below average to mediocre, but offensively, he's basically like a poor man's Klay Thompson. Uh, so like he's a really good catch and shoot player. Can't create much for himself off the dribble, but is a good catch and shoot player. And he, as I say, he's good, and that's why he's up this far. At 17, Caris LeVert, below average to mediocre defensively, but offensively he can create his own shot. He can shoot it a little bit. He's basically average to. He's streaky at shooting. He's average overall, but he is streaky. So like some nights he'll be good and some nights he'll be bad. He's not really consistent from shooting, but he can create his own shot. He can create off the dribble, and those are valuable things to have in the NBA, especially for a team that's going to be looking for like a second option behind Kyrie. So he'll be useful on the Nets in a full season being healthy, coming back from that injury last year. 16, I have Andrew Wiggins, who I think will be starting at shooting guard for the Wolves next to Covington at the small forward. Wiggins, he can create his own shot off the dribble. He's an awful defender, but he's naturally gifted athletically. He is gifted on offense, but doesn't really put in the work. But just off of his natural talent alone, he's pretty decent actually. Can't shoot it very well. He's pretty inconsistent from there, and his efficiency is bad, but still he's naturally gifted and he can be good. He can play at all-star levels on some nights, so that's why I have him this high. At 15, I have Josh Richardson, who is a guy who he can play. He can guard basically the 1 through the 3. He's good on defense. I'd say above average. He can shoot. He can create his own shot off the dribble. He can distribute the ball. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, and like a very few players in the league, he can kind of do everything that you need him to do for his position. But he can do everything well, but not anything great, is what I would define him as. Next, I have Gary Harris, who he's a guy who's kind of tough to figure out. He's undersized for his position. He's average to below average on defense. He's a pretty good shooter. He can create some off the dribble, but it just feels he's kind of like a poor man's CJ McCollum. That's what I define Gary Harris as. So there you have it. That's my best description for him. let's see here. At 13, I have Buddy Hield. I really like Buddy Hield. He's average to mediocre on defense, but offensively, he can create his own shot. He can shoot it really well. He works well with De'Aaron Fox in that he can get up and down pretty fast. Um, like how I said that Gary Harris is a poor man CJ McCollum, um, I would say Buddy Hield is like an average man CJ McCollum. Like he's kind of in the same vein and type of player, but he's a little bit worse, but he's not like a poor man CJ McCollum because he's a little bit better than that. Okay, let's see here. Now going on to number 12, I have Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is not good on defense, but on offense he puts up big stats and really gaudy numbers, and he appears really good to a lot of people, I think. I think too a big thing is that when he's been putting up these big numbers, the Bulls haven't really had anybody who's a stat stuffer, and Zach LaVine sort of has become a stat stuffer. Um, Not saying that he's not a good player, I think he is, but I think him averaging 24 points per game is deceiving in that he's not really that kind of a player. It's just a team that didn't have many developed scoring options. Uh, Much like how Kevin Love averaged like 26 points per game on the Cavaliers, but he'll probably never do that again. I feel like that's sort of like LaVine on the Bulls. Um, just kind of a stat stuffer and good on offense, can shoot, can create his own dribble, is extremely athletic, but just kind of puts up empty stats for me. Okay, next on here I have Jaylen Brown at 11. Very above average to good on defense on any given night. On offense, he can shoot it he's average at shooting, and he's very athletic, and he can score off the dribble and create his own shot, but his lack of consistent shooting ability does limit him, but I could easily see him being an all-star this year or next year. He's continuing to develop all the time, and I think with Kyrie out of there, that'll kind of um, help him grow more, because I think last year that he kind of stagnated and got lost in the shuffle amidst like 4 to 5 guys who all thought that they should be one of the primary scoring options. But I think it'll be a little bit more spread the love this year without Kyrie there. Now coming into our top 10, at 10 I have Jrue Holiday. Very underrated player, very good, extremely good defender. Was first team all defense just like 2 years ago in the 2018 season. On offense, he can shoot it really well. He can also score off the dribble, create his own shot, and he will be playing shooting guard, but he is originally a point guard, and of course because of that, he is a good distributor. So he can kind of do everything you need from him on both sides of the ball. Again, not fantastic at anything, but really good at everything. Klay Thompson at number 9 will take the hardest guy on defense and not bat an eyelash. Again, a somewhat underrated defender, but very good. And this year he finally got on a defensive team for the first time, an all defensive team. On offense, he is a catch and shoot monster, and basically whenever I see him catch the ball in the corner and line it up, I think, okay, it's going in. Even if it doesn't, that's always my assumption, is that it's going in. That's how good he is as a shooter. Can't create off the dribble. If he could, he'd be much higher for me on this list. At number 8, this is going to ruffle some feathers, and basically your feathers might be ruffled from now on during this, because you're saying this guy's not better than Klay Thompson, but I'm expecting Klay to be a little bit worse this year, considering he's going to be coming back from a very significant injury. So this is just for this year. Like all time, I don't think these guys are necessarily better than Klay Thompson for their entire careers, but just for this upcoming year. So keep that in mind. I don't want to have to explain it with every guy I bring up, but just keep that in mind. That the reason I had Klay relatively low for where he usually is because I'm anticipating him coming back a little bit slower from the injury. But let me get back to my points. At 8, CJ McCollum. Nothing, very mediocre defender, undersized, and not really too athletic either. But on offense, really good handles for a shooting guard. Has really good shooting abilities. Can score off the dribble. Can kind of score in a bunch of different ways, and very versatile on offense. So for that reason, I've got him here. At number 7, Devin Booker. Kind of like there's kind of a pattern in these next couple guys, but he's similar to CJ McCollum in some ways in that on offense he can shoot well, he can score off the dribble well, he can ISO very well and create his own shot in a number of ways. And on defense he's mediocre to downright bad, but on offense he's a very skilled player. A little bit like Zach LaVine in that he's kind of a stat stuffer I think at this point, but we'll just have to see. Everything that anyone ever says about him is like, oh, Devin Booker's so good. And I guess I'll believe that, but when the team is like a 50-win team, I'll want to see what his production and efficiencies are like, and that will really indicate to me whether he's a good player, because he definitely has not improved his team whatsoever, even if he's been putting up good numbers. At number 6 here, Donovan Mitchell. Again, like an average to on his worst nights, mediocre defender. On offense, not a great shooter. He's kind of like a I hear a lot of Dwayne Wade comparisons for Donovan Mitchell. I don't quite see that. I don't think he's as uh, Dwayne Wade just sort of had this level of it's hard to put your finger on it, but like he had things like these really graceful fadeaways and finger touch floater put-ins and Euro step things, and I think Donovan definitely has some of that, but I don't think he is completely that. I don't think that Donovan Mitchell will become the next Dwayne Wade, so to speak. I think he's very good, though. Of course, I've got him here at 6 on my list of shooting guards. I think he will be an all-star this year. And he has some, like, he can do some Euro steps and stuff like that, but I feel like Dwayne Wade just had a bit of a better touch and a little bit more athletic in his prime. But Donovan Mitchell's sort of like, not a poor man's Dwayne Wade, but like Dwayne Wade light. That's how I would put it, I guess. Bradley Beal next, again, like an average to mediocre defender, depending on the night. Usually more on the somewhere right in between there. I don't know what you'd call in between average and mediocre. But on offense, a really good shooter. And this year, I think he showed that he can create off the dribble and be maybe not he can be not the primary scoring option on a contender, but he could be like the second option on a championship contender, I think. And he can kind of score in like every which way. We hadn't really seen much off the dribble scoring from him before, because usually John Wall dominates the ball and he's more coming off of screens and doing catch and shoots. But this year he handled the ball a lot more, and we saw a lot more of what he can do when he's running the show. At 4, we have Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo, hopefully he comes back healthy, which I think he will, considering I think he's going to take a ton of time off and just make sure he comes back completely healthy. Um, and, you know, Vic is a two-way player uh, who he defends really well despite being undersized, and then on offense, he can create his own shot. Uh, Average shooter from the beyond the arc, but he can create his own shot really well, and he's a guy that's just got so much weight on him in Indiana. He's got to be the best defender and best offensive player basically at all times. And when he's been healthy, he's been holding that mantle pretty well. At number 3, I have Jimmy Butler for the Heat. I think that as the sole star, sort of sole all-star, high level talent in Miami, I think he'll get a ton of shots. I think he'll be the go-to guy on every play, which it seems like is what he wants. That's why he went to Miami. He's basically just getting what he had in Chicago in like 2017 that he didn't want to be on anymore, but he's right back in that situation, which, as you can tell, I'm not super enthused about. But he'll score 24 points per game, probably somewhere between that, like 22 to 24 points per game. He'll probably put up 5 and 5, 5 assists, 5 rebounds a night. Probably make an all defensive team if he stays healthy all year. Again, a very good defender, average shooter, can create off the dribble really well though, and can do a lot of things like back downs and post fadeaways, which not many people know that he can do, and um, is just very versatile on offense despite having only an average 3-point shot. At number 2 on here, I have Paul George, basically a taller, better Jimmy Butler. Most people don't know this, but Paul George is 6'10". He measured in as that as a rookie, and he always lists his height as 6'8", but most people don't know Paul George is 6'10". Fun fact. He I think will start at shooting guard for the Clippers. I think they don't want to start Kawhi at power forward, I don't think, so they'll have him in there at small forward and then Paul George at shooting guard. And I think he will be great this year. I think he'll be hopefully healthy, and I expect great things from a guy who nearly won MVP and almost also won Defensive Player of the Year last year. He can score in every which way. Really good 3-point shooter, and then also really good at scoring off of the dribble and creating his own shot. And then on defense, he can guard basically the point guard through power forwards. He's very versatile on defense and very hard-nosed on defense. And at number 1 for shooting guards, I have the former MVP, the 3-time MVP runner-up. Yes, he has been a runner-up for MVP 3 times. Fun fact. James Harden. On offense, he just scores at ease. On defense, on his best days on defense, he's average. On his worst days on defense, he's bad. But on offense, he's the most gifted. You could argue he's the most gifted scorer in the NBA right now. And yes, maybe he abuses the rules, but don't hate the player, hate the game. James Harden is a really good player, whatever people say against him. That's all I got, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you tune in next time. And again, feel free to leave comments below if you have any. All right. Bye.